to this episode of Back and Forth Sports. I'm C, the producer. Today I'm joined by Tommy Simmons.
Hello, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. Today we have numerous things to talk about. It's a lot like the opposite of summer sports talk, where there's nothing to talk about. And it just depresses me thinking about how close summer is and how, anyway, but it's good now. We have lots of things to talk about. Tommy, what do you want to talk about first?
I want to talk about the Washington Wizards, and at least before tonight, their surge without their star player.
That being John Wall, of course.
Of course.
Yeah, a lot of talk about how maybe the Wizards would be better without John Wall, and I know some people find that crazy because he's arguably their best player. I mean, it's either him or Beal. But I think what people really need to realize is sometimes just because you have a great player, that doesn't mean he meshes well with the rest of the team until the game Tuesday night with the Sixers that they lost by, 16?
Yeah, I think they ended up losing by 13.
No, 13.
Something like that.
Yeah. Before that game, they were on a 5-game win streak, and they really, I thought, looked like a whole different team, and it had a little more swagger, had a lot more confidence, and with the offense going through the point guard, which is Wall, or in this case now it's
Satoransky.
Yeah, it's hard to remember and then pronounce that name. But I mean, the offense looked so much better going through Satoransky or the backup point guard than it has been with Wall. And it's funny, I heard Stephen A. Smith talking about it. It's like, oh, that's ludicrous. The Wizards being better without John Wall. And then he went on a list of all the stuff John Wall needs to work on.
Yeah, I caught that myself. He was saying, if this continues, John Wall, he had better get his butt back and be ready to contribute right away. Well, here's the way I look at it. If you look at it objectively, number one, in the NBA, typically, historically, when you trade all-stars, you don't get a fair return. Sometimes you trade an all-star for an all-star, but there's a lot of factors to kind of keep in mind here. Number one is you have to realize that John Wall just signed a 4-year, $170 million Supermax extension with the Wizards. And I'm not talking like a year ago. I'm talking in July. And for those of you who are not math majors, that's over $40 million a year. And in the NBA, when you make a trade, you have to trade salary for salary. You can't trade John Wall for 6 future number 1 draft picks. You have to get a very high percentage of that $40 million in return. So if you're trading John Wall, then you, in my opinion, you have to trade Bradley Beal, because you're not a team that's just going to pick up somebody for John Wall and all of a sudden be a title contender. If you're not a title contender with John Wall right now, then you need to hit the reset button. And the 2 biggest pieces to get you the max return for rebuilding your franchise would be to trade both of them. In my opinion, it's asinine. I mean, I'm on the side that looks at this objectively. I was around when Wes Unseld was the coach, and The only time that the arena was more than 50% full was when Larry Bird was in town. So I'm looking at the Wizards as currently the 4th seed in the conference, and I'm fine with that. I mean, if they were to actually add a piece, like maybe trade Gortat and Kelly Oubre Jr., and you bring in, a DeAndre Jordan or whatever, I think that's what they need to look to be doing right now, not blowing up the ship again and reverting back to the reset button. What do you think?
Well, I think if you trade Wall, your mindset is the team is better without Wall because of the chemistry. But the question is, what do you get in return, of course. I actually saw someone suggest a trade of, and I'm not a huge fan of it because it involves Lonzo Ball. It was Wall and Gortat for Ball and, was it for Lopez? I'd have to double check that. I don't have it on my. I just saw it in passing.
Yeah, that's interesting. You're getting younger at the point guard position, certainly. Lonzo Ball is a player that, he's kind of had like a roller coaster type rookie season. He came out and people were calling him a bust in the beginning of the year because he was literally the worst shooting player in the NBA. Like literally, he had the worst field goal percentage and the worst free throw percentage. But yet, on the other hand, he's kind of a unique player in that he'll get you close to double-figure points. He's going to get you 7 or 8 rebounds. He's going to be a threat to give you, double-digit assists on any given night. And he's one of those guys that, particularly with the Wizards' issues right now, he's a guy that a lot of people consider as someone who's able to make their teammates better. So it's interesting. I don't particularly like Brook Lopez. I think he's kind of fallen off a cliff here this season. But yeah, that's something interesting. I doubt Magic Johnson and the Lakers would be willing to kind of give up on Lonzo Ball unless it was a deal like that to get like a perennial all-star in return in John Wall. So it is interesting.
Yeah. But first, Lopez, the reason he might have fallen off a cliff is because of his current situation team-wise and teammate-wise. So the Wizards would be taking a gamble with that one, and they'd be taking a gamble with Ball. But I believe they'd clear up some cap space. But then you're not really getting anyone to make a push this season.
Yeah, you'd have to look at that particular trade on 2 different levels. One would be the one that we just analyzed, like, salary, youth, what kind of players they are. And then the other way of analyzing that trade would be you're not just getting Lonzo Ball, you're getting his father as well.
Yeah.
So no thank you.
Yeah, that I think that's the part of the trade that definitely.
And plus we can't have Donald Trump and LeVar Ball in the same city. It's just not gonna work. So I don't even think they should entertain that idea.
But I did see that the Lakers were one of the teams that they were shopping Gortat to. Not sure why. I'm not sure who would want Gortat, or what the thought process is in getting rid of Gortat for the Wizards.
Well, here's what the thought process is. He actually sent a tweet the other night. I don't know if you saw this, but after a Wizards victory, he sent out a tweet that said something to the effect of "great team win tonight," and he put "team" in quotations.
Right.
So it was kind of like a
shot at Wall.
An indirect shot at John Wall. And John Wall actually was on television today giving an interview, and anybody listening should check it out. He really had some words there for Gortat. So I think for whatever reason, that relationship on the team has really soured, seemingly. Gortat and Wall just don't seem to be on the same page right now.
Right. Do you think the Wizards, with the trade for Gortat, are they going to get somebody for a push for this season, or are they thinking more draft pick, something like it?
Well, it's hard to say, and it really comes down to what their philosophy is. Like, in my opinion, the Wizards are built to win right now. They're not built for hitting the reset button.
Right.
And the reason is they haven't had a first-round draft pick in 3 out of the last 4 years, which is amazing. I mean, 3 out of the last 4 years they had no first-round draft pick. You know, they traded one for for Morris, and so if they're of the philosophy that they're trying to reset, they're not resetting from a point where, well, we got this guy waiting on the bench and we got this first round pick from 2 years ago. He could step into the starting lineup if we trade Bradley Beal. They don't have that. So I think if they move Gortat, it has to be thinking, we're going to move Gortat and this person, whoever that may be, to get somebody of substance, you know, like a DeAndre Jordan to man the middle or something. You know, maybe you could throw Gortat and Kelly Oubre Jr. and a first-round pick next year to Los Angeles to get DeAndre Jordan or something like that. But I think if they're just moving Gortat because they're trying to hit the reset button and they're going to start looking to trade John Wall, that's going to be a disaster, just in my opinion, because they're not going to get the return of what they're giving up, and they don't have any pieces right now to reset with. They would have to start over from nothing. I mean, they have Tim Frazier, they have Satoransky, they got Morris, who's an okay player, but they don't have any young guys waiting in the wings to take over for these veterans that, if they traded them to hit the reset button, they have to win now.
Right. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious looking at the West, though. You need to add a big piece to win now. I mean, if you're just okay with making the playoffs and making a run and losing in the conference championship, we have the team. They have the team to do it, but they don't have the team to. They might not have the team to make to the finals, and they probably definitely don't have the team to win in the finals. I'm not sure if any team in the East has that. Maybe the Celtics, maybe Cleveland, and we're about to talk about Cleveland here.
Yeah, I mean, that's the state of unfortunately, the state of the NBA right now. You know, we can talk all we want about, you know, who the Wizards could add in a trade or what they're going to do. Are they going to stand pat with John Wall and Bradley Beal and Otto Porter, or are they going to try to add and make a quote-unquote run? But what are they running to? The third seed in the East, the second seed in the East, and then lose in the second round, you know? I mean, the current state of the NBA is, if you're not James Harden or LeBron James or Kevin Durant or Russell Westbrook, or I'll throw Kyrie Irving in there, you know, what chance do you even have of winning a championship? And the answer is very little.
Right. And I think it's one of the NBA's big problems is you can, I'll give them credit this year, but the last few years, you could, like, 75% of the public could pick correctly who's going to make it to the finals, as long as they're not being homers, and they'll pick it correctly. This year might be a little harder because of the West and Celtics kind of sneaking up.
Right.
But, I mean, last few years you knew who was going in.
It's different now, but we kind of saw it in the 80s when you had Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. But
Yeah.
you also had, you know, you had Michael Jordan coming on. You had the Detroit Pistons, you know, in there with those battles. You even had, you know, Patrick Ewing and the Knicks were relevant. You had all these teams that potentially had a shot, even though you had you know, Bird and Magic played in the finals, I think 3 times. And but today's certainly different in that these super teams, and now we got one in Houston, you know, and look at what they're doing. It's just, I don't particularly like it. I know a lot of people like superstar-laden teams, but I'm a fan of kind of like the NFL structure, you know, like more parity.
More parity.
A team like the Eagles can come out of nowhere and just win the Super Bowl. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, like every year, anyone could win the Super Bowl except for the Browns. And
yeah, definitely not the Browns ever.
But and it's weird though that all the teams are flocking to, or all the great players are flocking to the West. You would think if you come to the East and join like a Wizards team that needs like that one big piece to become a super team, or the Celtics, you know, there's a couple other teams maybe that one or two guys you have a super team that could contend and make it to the finals. You make it to the finals, I mean, you got you probably got a max contract, plus you're getting a lot more deals with companies who want you to, or you know, that want to sponsor you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I think, I mean, what we've seen is, you know, Kevin Durant had the option to go wherever he wanted, and he went to the defending champions, you know. And then, you know, the other super team was, I guess, Chris Paul, but, you know, he certainly had a say in where he was going, but I think it's different than Durant being like an unrestricted free agent, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to see, you know, the Celtics, you know, they have the number one record in the East right now. I'm interested to see if Gordon Hayward can come back next year and be the player that he was, because people are forgetting they got him sitting on the red shirt list right now.
Yeah. But I mean, also Paul George and Carmelo Anthony went to OKC.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I mean,
yeah, that's a team I just can't figure out, man. I mean, they had a streak. I want to say it was like a month ago. They won 8 in a row, and now I saw that they're down going into this game tonight against Golden State. I think they lost 5 in a row now or something.
Yeah, I think they're a lot like Cleveland. They got a lot of talent. They just haven't figured out how to win consistently. I mean, they're not the mess that Cleveland is right now. I mean, you don't see Russell Westbrook cursing out front office execs and whatnot because the team's not winning. And which brings us to Cleveland and that mess.
It's a disaster.
Yeah. But, I mean, honestly, I think they're going to get together and you might have, for the first time in a while, a really good Eastern Conference final between the Celtics and Cleveland.
Yeah, that's the positive in this mess going on in Cleveland right now. They just don't, I mean, they don't look like the same team. They've lost 13 of 20 games. Since January 1st, they've lost 4 games wire to wire where they never even had a lead in the game. They've allowed 115 points per game since January 2nd, which is, by the way, dead last in the NBA in that time frame. And here's the big stat, Sea-Dog. They are 0-8 against the top teams in the league since their opening night victory over the Celtics. They haven't won any game since opening night against the top teams in the NBA.
Yeah.
Since that opening night. I mean, they don't look like the same team. They look like a bunch of individuals right now. I mean, and a lot of it has to do with, you know, like you said, they got all this talent, but these guys are used to playing minutes, you know, like Derrick Rose and Dwayne Wade, and then they throw Isaiah Thomas out there, and everybody's saying he's still injured. He's shooting like 36% from the field. It's just a complete nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah, the Cleveland went overboard with, like, after losing to the Warriors in, what was it, 5 or 6 games? 5 games. 5 or 6 in the finals.
Right.
They were talking about, they just need, like, another piece to get over the hump. and instead they got a crap load of pieces, and they're trying to jam them into the missing piece spot. I guess you could say it's kind of like having a puzzle. You're missing a piece, and so you just grab a bunch of pieces from wherever and hope one of them fits. And they're trying to cram like 4 pieces into one spot, and they really didn't need that much more help.
You can't. I mean, Cleveland has and I think part of it is Dan Gilbert. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Going back to drafting Anthony Bennett with the #1 pick, he's not even in the league anymore. You can't just take a bunch of pieces to a jigsaw puzzle and throw them into a box and say, "Here, put yourself together." I mean, a big part of this, I think, is Isaiah Thomas. I mean, a lot of people thought Cleveland actually got the better of that deal, even though Kyrie Irving was the best player in the deal. They were getting a 29-point-per-game scorer in Isaiah Thomas. They were getting the first-round pick from Brooklyn. But Isaiah Thomas, he doesn't fit with that team. He's a 5'9" point guard who can't play defense. And he's gone from averaging 29 points a game. He's averaging 15 points a game right now on 36% shooting. I mean, honestly, they were a better team when Jose Calderon was playing point guard. They might want to consider starting Derrick Rose and having either trading Isaiah Thomas or having him come off the bench with Dwayne Wade, because he's not coexisting with those guys right now.
Right. How much longer till the trade deadline? Was it like the? Shoot.
Man, I was just reading about that today. I forget what day it is, but very soon.
Well, they really need to go in there, have a little team meeting, LeBron excluded. Be like, listen, guys, something's not working, and we need to figure out what it is. And if you're not working on this team, you're either going to be on the bench or you're going to get traded. And they need to figure themselves out before the trade deadline so they know what to do. Make a move if that's the way to go. They need a game plan, really.
Yeah, I mean, part of a game plan is like longer term picture as well, and it's got to be incredibly difficult for Cleveland. I mean, they're literally being held hostage by LeBron James. He's on all these 1-year deals. He's got a no trade clause. He's on a 1-year deal every year. They don't know if he's coming back. There's always rumors that he's leaving. Dan Gilbert's in an incredibly difficult position right now. It's hard to build a team when you don't know if the greatest player in this generation is even going to be on the team next year. It's hard to, for example, that Brooklyn first-round pick that they have, they could trade that right now and get a piece, but, why would you mortgage your future if you don't even know if the team's going to be together next year? LeBron could just walk right out of town like he did before.
Yeah,
it's hard to make those decisions. Like, nobody knows what the hell's going on with LeBron.
Yeah, you kind of have to just assume what's going to happen and really probably assume the worst. You should probably assume he's going to go, because all this mess talk about him going to Houston or Golden State next year, which is ridiculous. Like, what's the NBA doing? Like, and I think I've said this on every back and forth sports broadcast since we've brought it to YouTube, that the NBA just needs to go to the English Premier League style if they're just going to have these kind of teams, especially if they're all just going to go west. Just let that be the A squad, and when the E squad wins their championship, they can be in the Premier League, and the bottom of the West can go to the second tier league. And then everyone can have all these. You can have your 16 super duper teams, and any teams that don't want to shell out the money to be a super duper team can go to the second tier and let another team from the East or second tier move up and try to
build a super team.
I
think that's a great idea, but But while we're on the topic of things that will never happen,
Yeah.
why don't they just have like a fantasy draft like they do on NBA 2K18, and they just throw like LeBron James and Kevin Durant into the first and second overall pick, and then we just start over with the entire league. That would be awesome too.
That would be nice, but I mean, I think NBA fans like the super team deal. I think there's a lack of NBA fans who have their team.
Right.
I think NBA
Oh, yeah,
fans
absolutely.
follow a player or like, ooh, a super team. I'm gonna go to the store and bandwagon and buy a bunch of Golden State Warriors stuff. Oh, look at Houston. I'm gonna go buy a bunch of Astros, Houston Rockets stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the least loyal fan base in sports
Yeah,
right now.
I used to like Golden State, but last year I started liking Cleveland. But this year I think I like Boston. They're pretty nice.
Yeah. But moving on from the NBA, let's hit up on the Super Bowl or NFL, and I think the big story from Tuesday is Josh McDaniels, and we talked about this last Sunday after the Super Bowl.
Yeah, what is up with that?
Well, I had heard, actually, there was a headline, let me pull it up, that the Patriots kind of sweeten.
Yeah. They basically they gave him more money, but we don't know. Well, for anybody who's listening who doesn't know what happened, basically they had a deal, an agreement in principle for Josh McDaniels to become the next head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. And there had been some speculation over the weekend, particularly Sunday, that he was having second thoughts. Well, the Indianapolis Colts apparently officially announced the hiring of Josh McDaniels today in the midst of all these rumors that he was having second thoughts. Okay, I saw that and I was like, okay, he decided that he is going to coach the Colts. Well, tonight, Adam Schefter pops up on my Twitter and says, Josh McDaniels has decided not to leave the Patriots. Oh, and also, he had put together a staff. So he's got all these assistants all over the league that were going to Indianapolis with him. And the interesting thing, the crazy thing, is that some of those assistants have actually signed their contracts with the Colts to become, like, for example, the defensive coordinator. So his staff, half of his staff has already signed the contracts, and he's backed out. I've never seen anything like it. Well, maybe Belichick kind of did this with the Jets, you know, when he resigned on the napkin or whatever.
Right. I'm trying to think of the college coach. He was with Louisiana or LSU. He was talking with Michigan, and he was pretty much a done deal. He was going to Michigan, and then Michigan announced before the coach wanted them to that he was going to go over there because the LSU season wasn't over. So when they did that, he was like, well, screw you guys then, because I told you not to do that. I'm just going to stay with LSU, or he went to somewhere else. That's what that kind of reminds me, but it's a little different situation. And you got to kind of think, part of that sweetening that deal was like, hey, Belichick's only going to be here another 1 or 2 years, and then the job's yours. Oh, breaking news. Knicks just announced that Kristaps Porzingis tore his ACL tonight.
Yeah, I saw he got carried off. That is devastating, obviously.
I mean, yes, and did it really matter? It's not like the Knicks were going anywhere.
That's just going to help their draft position.
Exactly. I mean, the draft is pretty deep. Looks like it's going to be pretty deep this season.
Man, he has had injury trouble all year. It's just been a rough year for him.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, for him, with the ACL injury, he can just sit back, relax, completely heal everything, and hopefully he
Yeah.
has a good personal trainer or team trainer that'll get him in good playing shape.
Yeah. Yeah, he'll be fine. I mean, ACLs, you know, everybody thinks it's like a career-ending injury or whatever, but there's actually players in the NBA that don't even have ACLs. Like, you know, DeJuan Blair, drafted by the Spurs, he was with the Wizards for a short time. He was born without ACLs, you know, so for Zinskis, he'll be fine, but
Yeah.
been a rough season for injuries for that guy.
Yeah. He's rich, and plus the Knicks will probably pay. He'll go to like Dr. John Andrews, who does all the big time athletes, and he'll be fine.
Right.
As long as he doesn't become the next Derrick Rose and gets injured every year.
Yeah, he'll probably be on the Warriors in 3 years anyway.
As long as he's good enough, you kind of have to be a certain level of player for you to be able to join the Warriors.
Right. Yeah, I like watching him. He's like 7'2" or 7'3", and he plays like a guard. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, he's fun to watch.
He's kind of like all these European guys that have gotten drafted in the past, half of which never even make it to the league. But he's kind of like the guy that we've been waiting for, you know, the European style play, the European style stretch big man who's just turned into a superstar.
Right. He's like Dirk 2.0.
Yeah, exactly.
Who they misspelled his jersey name, or his name on his jersey when he reached 50,000 points, I believe it was, last night.
What?
Yeah. They instead of Nowitzki, they spelled it Zitsky or something like that. I mean, it was only 2 letters mixed up, but I mean, you're making that guy's jersey every night or every game. How do you mess it up on such a big night? It might have been a gag. Who knows?
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. But yeah, back to the NFL. Like I was saying, McDaniels, part of that deal might be him taking over for Belichick in a year or two.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think. That's what I was kind of getting into. Like, we don't know. There was a report that his contract was sweetened or whatever, so obviously that's going to include some sort of pay raise. He's probably, you know, the highest paid assistant in the NFL now, which, you know, honestly, he probably should be, the way he runs that offense. But
especially if you're going to give up a head coaching job.
yeah, who knows if there's something else that was said to him by the owner, like, hey, you're first in line when Belichick leaves.
Yeah. I mean, they'll still do all the posturing coach interviews. But, yeah, McDaniel will probably slide right in there if they, once Belichick leaves, which might be soon.
But honestly, I mean, I'd be absolutely terrified to take that job. Like, when Brady and Belichick leave, like...
Oh, yeah, he's going to get freaking crucified. Like,
yeah. You could never live up to any sort of expectations that would come with that job. I'd be terrified.
right. I mean, he's already failed in Denver once, but, yeah, failing in New England after... But, I mean, it depends. New England's probably a little less stressful than, like, say, New York, where any little mistake, they're all over you. I mean...
Oh, yeah.
I think people will be like, well, listen, he doesn't have Brady. He doesn't have what Belichick had. Hopefully for him, though, if he does take over, everyone will still run the ship the same way and not... They'll still sign players and pick up players. Their player personnel moves will be similar. They won't...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they have a way of doing things that, I mean, it's amazing, like, what they get out of people. They trade away people who are in the Pro Bowl
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Collins, they traded that linebacker to the linebacker that went to Arizona, and then they traded the guy to Cleveland. Both of those guys were considered top players. They got a way of doing things that is awesome, actually.
Yeah, it's surreal how they do it.
I mean, they just gave us an example. I mean, I don't know if it worked out to their benefit, but Sunday they benched their top corner for disciplinary reasons. You know,
Right,
Malcolm Butler.
right.
Probably could have used him back there Sunday.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk of whether that was the right move or not. Yeah, I don't know if I make the move to be like, yeah, you're benched the whole game. You're only playing special teams. Like maybe you're gonna start on the bench, and you're probably gonna stay on the bench unless we really need you, but not until like the second half.
Yeah, I mean, there's reports that it was actually drug related.
Ooh.
I saw a report earlier that it had something to do with marijuana, and then there was another report that he had women in his room past the curfew time or something. But he came out and denied that, but he didn't deny the marijuana piece. So who knows?
Right. But I mean, it's hard. It's hard to criticize moves that organization makes. Cause even if they fail, you're still like, they still have all those Super Bowls lately.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you, but I like to play devil's advocate. I mean, how much of it is? Oh, and by the way, we also have the luxury of having the greatest quarterback that's ever played, arguably. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Belichick is quote unquote a defensive genius, but that defense got shredded by Philadelphia up and down the field all night in the biggest game, you know. And it's happened before throughout the season, and in past seasons the defense has just been terrible. I know my wife, for example, she had the New England fantasy defense, and she had to drop them like week 5 or 6 this year because they were just god awful.
Yeah.
I don't know. I certainly subscribe to the notion that they do things the right way, and you know, they get the most out of their players and everything. But they also have Tom Brady, which is pretty advantageous.
And they always make sure they have a good offensive line, which is huge.
Yeah.
Like you look at, I hate that we keep going back to Washington. I know both of us are Washington fans, but we're trying to do a international show here. But I mean, like, look at Washington and the teams they've won, or the quarterbacks they've won with, and half of that is the offensive line in front of them, who didn't hardly allow any contact onto the quarterbacks those years in '87.
I don't understand how the NFL has evolved to the point where every team doesn't look to lock up that offensive line first. You know, that's like the most. Look, Tom Brady, if he didn't have an offensive line, he wouldn't be able to play in the league anymore.
Oh no, he'd be so beaten up.
Yeah, a 40 or 41-year-old man. You never hear about him having concussions, or, I mean, he wouldn't be able to hold up at his age without a line. And, you know, the Redskins were able to do it with Mark Rippon and Doug Williams, who had 2 bad knees and was coming out of the United States Football League. Like, they always had a good offensive line, and I think Mark Rippon got sacked 9 times that entire 91 season. I don't know why teams don't prioritize that and the defensive line, like your front, you know, your front 7 on defense and your front 5 on offense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I understand the offensive side, offensive lineman. It's not sexy, and sometimes you're not. It's hard to judge from college to pro sometimes with the offensive line. Um,
Yeah.
well, I mean any position, but you need five offensive line or five good players just for the starters for a good offensive line. Then you got to think about backups. Like building a solid, reliable line and depth on that line, it's a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, if you look at a lot of the busts, a lot of them are offensive linemen that are taken, like Robert Gallery. He was supposed to be, one of the best left tackles that we've seen in a while, and he busted out ended up having to play guard. And, Khalil was drafted pretty high, and he didn't have a great start to his career. We see it time and time again that some of the best offensive linemen are either drafted in the middle or late rounds, or sometimes not drafted at all.
Yeah, because it's hard to tell because you have some guys who seem like dominant offensive linemen in college, but they're never really matched up against anybody good. I mean, even like SEC offensive linemen, they won't face a solid future NFL defensive lineman or linebacker.
Yeah, like the Redskins, they had that guy Ari Kwanjo. He played in the SEC, and I thought he was going to be like a really good lineman. And he was like on and off the team this year. They kept signing him because guys were getting hurt. He wasn't on the team the first half of the year. He was out of football. You never know with these guys.
Yeah.
And like I said, some of the best ones ever have been undrafted, like Philadelphia's left tackle, the guy that got hurt this year.
Yeah. And that's the other thing about the offensive linemen. It's so easy for them to get hurt, like, because someone rolls the wrong way and they roll up on their ankle or their shin or calf or whatever, and they blow their knee out or they blow their ankle out or they break a leg.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't want to spend like a huge amount of money on a guy who could get taken out like, I mean, anybody on the team can get taken out like that, but with offensive linemen, it's like they have the usual risk, and then you add freak falling because you're in the trenches with other 300-pound guys falling down and whatnot.
Yeah, like I thought of his name, Jason Peters for Philadelphia.
Oh yeah.
He wasn't even drafted, and he was playing tight end, and he turned into like arguably the best left tackle in football for 8, 9, 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Jacoby, who got
snubbed
robbed of the Hall of Fame again, he wasn't drafted, and he was the best tackle in football for several years.
Yeah. Offensive line. It's hard, but yeah, it does still seem like some teams put it on the back burner of the importance.
Yeah, and surprisingly, now the Redskins, they haven't had the success to show for it, but they have invested in their line recently. They got Trent Williams, of course, first-round top 5 pick. They got Brandon Sheriff, who was a top 5 pick playing right guard.
Mm-hmm.
They got a second-round pick. I think Morgan Moses might have gone in the 3rd round as their right tackle, and he's a borderline Pro Bowl caliber player now. So we've started to see some investment from them, which we didn't have for decades.
Yeah, it seems like. Yeah.
It's good to see. If we could just get a running game to go with it.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you kind of have to look at the offensive line on that too. If your run game's not working out, it depends why your run game's not working out, really.
Yeah, I mean, with the Redskins, I I don't know how much talent they have there. And then it seems like our play calling has a lot to do with it too. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of times the Redskins will run the ball for, not a lot of yards, but 40 yards or 50 yards in the first half, and then we come out in the second half and there's like 5 runs.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't figure that guy, Jay Gruden, out.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems to me he's good at coaching for 3 quarters, and then usually the third quarter, sometimes another quarter, he just like puts it on cruise control, and the team just looks like garbage, and it's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, hence why they beat Seattle, but then they'll lose to like garbage teams. But
ridiculous.
yeah, I really don't know why he doesn't get more heat. Like, I don't hear people talking about him being on the hot seat with his job.
Yeah, I don't hear a lot of it like on television or the radio, but I certainly hear a lot about it from my friends who, like over text messages and stuff. Everybody is talking about it amongst my peers, but like you said, don't hear a lot of it on the radio or television.
Yeah. I think if the Redskins stay healthy this year and they come up short again, then he's going to be gone.
Yeah, good possibility of it. I mean, he did just sign that extension before this past season, but that certainly doesn't mean anything to Daniel Snyder.
No, not at all. I mean, didn't he sign Spurrier to that extension and then sign Joe Gibbs?
Well, Spurrier was on the golf course and resigned. He called up Dan Snyder and resigned from the golf course, is at least the story I heard. And see, that's what they were trying to get Jim Zorn to do by taking away his play calling duties and stuff. Mm-hmm. If you resign, you're off the hook for that money as a team. So I think Spurrier already had a deal, to go
South Carolina.
To go coach for the Gamecocks, and he just kind of walked away. But in the case of Jay Gruden, they'd be on the hook for the remainder of his contract, right, if they were to fire him.
Well, maybe they need to take away his play calling too.
So when's the opening ceremonies for the Olympics? Is it Friday?
Yes, this Friday night. I imagine you can watch it live probably in the morning, since it'll be in Seoul, Korea.
Well, I heard that the opening ceremonies are actually at 6 a.m. in Seoul.
Really?
Yeah, like local time. So I don't know what the time difference is, but I think we got a good chance of seeing that during, prime time. Because it says, I just looked it up here, it says Friday, February 9th from 6 a.m. till 8 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
But, I wonder if that's our time, because don't they usually do the ceremony in the evening, like the night before the Olympics start?
Yeah, well, it's kind of, they do it the night of the Olympics, because you'll find out they did some preliminary events.
I'm thinking that 6 a.m. is going to be like Eastern time.
Well, it'll be on NBC, so Good Morning America will be over there, or whatever the NBC morning show is, and they'll probably cover it, and then that night they'll re-air it, edited, and a little bit more, however they want you to see it.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for the Olympics. I like. I usually watch a lot of Olympics, whether it be summer or winter, but I really like the Winter Olympics.
Yeah, I like them both. There's just a challenge. I mean, the challenge is a little less now that they add all the NBC family of channels, um,
Right.
to be able to watch what you want to watch. Like the sports I really like, hockey, the short track, speed skating. Well, any of the speed skating I love. Um, any of the non-judged events, I'm pretty big fan of. I mean, I can do figure skating and stuff, but but problem is, I mean, I understand why, because you have all these sports going on at one time. But like, say you want to watch the short track event, so you're like, oh, it's on USA. So you go to USA, they show you a couple races, then they jump to cross country skiing, then they jump
Oh,
to something
I got
else.
a, I got a solution for you, buddy. Because I used to have the same frustration with the Summer Olympics,
Hmm.
but 2 years ago when they did the Summer Olympics, the NBC Sports app had pretty much any event that I wanted to see. I could watch preliminaries for the swimming. You know, I could go back and watch the finals of a race that I didn't see on NBC's live coverage because I went to bed or whatever.
Hmm.
But you get that NBC Sports app, and as long as you get the channel, the NBC Sports Network, on your television, you just put in like your Comcast ID or whatever
Your cable
company
provider,
you have.
yeah, and that information.
Yeah, they had everything on there. I mean, anything you could ever imagine. I was watching like ping pong finals. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, I watched. I know what you're talking about. I actually used it too, to watch some water polo and whatnot.
Yeah,
Uh,
if you have a Chromecast on your TV, you can just cast it right to your TV. So I would get it called up on my phone and just cast it to the big screen.
right. Right. But I mean, not everyone has that luxury. Yeah, I don't have Chromecast, but it's something to look at with the Olympics coming up. A little extra. Um,
Yeah, well, it's certainly better than it was when we were kids. Because you had like
yeah, you had one channel.
one channel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we just had NBC or whatever, and that
Yeah.
was it.
Yeah. I mean,
But now you can literally watch it around the clock if you want to. Like before the coverage comes on for NBC, you just go on the website or whatever, or open up the app, and there you go.
I think the evolution of that, it was just NBC, and then NBC came out with like the bronze, silver, and gold channel or something like that. Maybe it was the red, white, and blue channel. And so you had a couple more options.
Was that the pay-per-view?
I believe so. It was some sort of pay-per-view
Yeah.
package.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember that.
it was like $10. It wasn't a lot, but I mean, I didn't have cable when I was a kid. It was like we had the antenna, so we got the basic broadcast channels.
Good old antenna.
Yep. But I mean, even the coverage or your options back in like 2000 weren't that great.
You didn't have cable growing up?
No, just antenna.
Where'd you live? French Lick, Indiana, or something?
No, no. Frederick, Maryland. It was pretty close. It was close enough. It was actually a good spot because you're close enough to D.C. and Baltimore that you get both of their signals pretty good. And so I actually had two NBCs, two CBSs, two ABCs, Fox and a half,
Yeah.
I would kind of say, and then like those two other kind of stepchild channels,
Right.
and then PBS.
Yeah, I grew up about 70 miles south of there, and we had the Baltimore and the DC stations also. And to this day, I have both. I live right in the middle of the two cities now, and I have the luxury of having both stations.
Oh, you still roll with the antenna?
No, I mean even on the cable.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
we get the D.C. and the Baltimore. But, like where my wife's parents live in Montgomery County, Maryland, which is right outside D.C., they don't get the Baltimore stations. It's kind of weird.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you could be off by 20 miles and get denied station.
Wow. Because now I live in Pennsylvania, I get some Philadelphia channels, some Harrisburg,
Wow.
Pittsburgh, DC, Baltimore, but not all of them. Like, I don't get the DC NBC anymore, which is weird because that was a go-to back in the day. I get like three ABCs. I don't know. They've jumped around in the last few years. Who carries ABC, CBS, and all that? I think I got like 2 CWs. It's weird.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. But
I plan on watching a lot of Olympics as much as I can.
oh yeah, my TV's going to be on 24/7, even when I'm asleep, on one of the Olympic channels. Preferably not MSNBC, because that actually, I hate to get political, but MSNBC, watching their commercials during, I think it was the last Winter Olympics, kind of pushed me over to the right side of the political spectrum. Because, like, what are you talking about?
Oh yeah, like some of their commercials are like, "We need to impeach the president. Enough is enough." Paid for by impeach Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I'm just trying to watch the Olympics. I want to watch the luge competition. Come
Yeah.
on.
I'm trying to not think about politics right now.
Right.
It's like, you're watching something that brings the world together, and then you get advertisements that's kind of splitting your country apart. It's like,
I guarantee you, if we came together and landed on Mars, and it was like the first humans landing on another planet, there'd be like commercials like that during that unifying event.
we've landed on Mars, but the president doesn't want you to go.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Donald Trump disapproved of the Mars landing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably just tune in with the app if they have it again. I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
And you can get a lot on the internet too.
Right.
But I probably won't be watching MSNBC.
Yeah.
If at all possible.
That was always my, if there's any like, ooh, I like this event and this event, but one is on this channel and this one's on MSNBC. I'm gonna watch the other one. I know they wanna. I mean, the rights to the Olympics aren't worth what you get in advertising. But while you get them, the reason you get them is so you can advertise your other shows, which is fine.
Absolutely.
Advertise your other shows, but don't annoy me with your messages that I don't know. We're getting political. I'd rather not, but I mean, it is still sports related.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of down the middle, but I can't. Like, if the Olympics were on Fox News, I'd have the same issue. Like,
Right.
the Olympics are just a way to kind of bring the world to. I mean, look at North Korea and South Korea. Like,
Yeah, they're having a joint team.
they're like, they're like sharing athletes. I mean, I think that's like super cool. It's a way to kind of get away from the divisiveness and just the everyday struggles of life and just watch people perform at the highest level, for their country. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I swear, if I hear, if I'm watching and there's a Russian team, a Russian participant, and they bring up freaking the Russia probe, I'm changing the channel.
I bet you they will.
Oh yeah.
Well, I heard some of them are able to compete, right? They went to court, and some of their bans were overturned, and some of them got their medals back from previous Olympics.
I had heard they put in a push to get some stuff overturned. I hadn't heard any results.
Yeah, I thought I saw that maybe a week ago. Some international court or something had overturned some of the bans, not all of them, but some of them. Because what they did is, at least to me, it seemed like they had some evidence on some people, and then
they just bunched everyone up.
Yeah, they kind of applied that to like all these athletes who apparently had no knowledge of it, like whatsoever. So I think they kind of reinstated some of the Russian athletes, but it just goes to show you, man, they're always out there trying to cheat. They did it back in the 80s with the East German women, were taking steroids.
Oh, yeah.
When they were under Russian occupation.
Mm-hmm.
It's just new decade, same old story.
Right. But that's all the time we have for tonight. Thanks to all those who watched or listened. Tommy, thank you for joining me tonight for this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That was fun.
Yes.
Good talking to you.
I hope to have you on for more episodes. Maybe our cohort, Bragmaster B, will join us one of these episodes.
Absolutely.
And thank you. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and for our listeners, he is a big-time Philadelphia sports fan.
Yeah.
So we need to get him on here soon so he can talk about his Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah. And if you follow our Facebook page, which, by the way, go find us on Facebook, Back to Brag Sports, you might have seen an influx of Philadelphia Eagles-related stories posted on there. That was, I think, all but one was from him. So we hopefully will have him on here soon, doing his thing like we did back in the day when there was all three of us. But for all those who watched and listened today, we thank you very much. Go find us on Facebook. Go find the Back to Brag account on Twitter. Like this channel. No, like this video. Subscribe to this channel. Comment below if there's anything you want us to cover next episode, next Tuesday probably. Other than just the Olympics and probably Lord knows what with basketball. I believe the All-Star Game's coming up. Let us know, and we will see you next time on Back to Brags. No, Back and Forth Sports.